Hi, everybody. I'm Carlos Hernandez, a member of Braver Angels located in San Francisco. And this is an exciting event and day for me. Take a look at your screens. 6 people of color are gathered here today to do a Braver Angels podcast. 3 of us, David and Donna included, are Braver Angels members. And the coolest part about today, our guests, Autumn, Cheyenne, and Keyshawn. Braver Angels, a new way discussing politics. So we'll introduce first David. Go ahead and introduce yourself, then followed by Donna.
Good afternoon. My name is David Joseph from Detroit, Michigan area. I recently joined Braver Angels early this year in March, and there is something compelling about this mission of depolarization and this mission of being able to have thoughtful, contemplative conversations, understanding that reasonable men and women of all beliefs, faiths can agree and disagree.
Thank you,
That's
David.
why I'm here.
Thank you very much. Donna?
Donna Lee. I live in Southern California, but I grew up in North Carolina. I'm a member of Braver Angels, and I'm really pleased to be here today for this event. Like David, I believe that this is a compelling issue for us to be participating in. This sort of unity of voices from disparate ends of all spectrums is intriguing to me. So, yeah. Thanks for having me, and thanks, Carlos.
What makes today really exciting, each of the students, they were specially invited by each one of us. And David introduced and brought to us Cheyenne Donaghy. So please introduce yourself, Cheyenne.
Hi, my name is Cheyenne Donaghy. I am a senior at Detroit International Academy for Young Women. And yeah.
Cool, thank you for that. And now I'll turn, Autumn, Miss Brown, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Autumn Brown, and I am a doctoral candidate at Oklahoma State University. I'm in the University Social Foundations of Education department, final stages of my dissertation process. So that is really great, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm especially pleased to introduce my Phi Kappa Psi fraternity brother, Keyshawn King. Keyshawn, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Keyshawn. I'm calling from Liberty, South Carolina, born and raised. I currently am a junior at Stanford University. I'm also a student athlete on the track and field team. I'm a triple jumper. I am currently I'm double majoring in psychology and sociology with a specialized track in data science, markets, and management. And I'm vice president of Phi Kappa Psi, as Mr. Carlos mentioned. So I'm happy to be here as well.
Thank you. And young men like Keyshawn keep me young. So David, we'll turn first to you for your first question.
Okay, so my first question, in light of where we are today, not necessarily just this date, but in this time, we talk about the role of influencers. And we see you all as young influencers in your own right, having reach with your generation, friends, family, whatsoever. And so in light of today, current situation, current society, if you look 5-10 years down the line when you all become leaders and you start taking this thing over and being in positions of influence, what do you see as the top priorities, 1 or 2 priorities as a nation?
Autumn, want to tackle that first?
Sure. I think the first thing that comes to mind are trying to dismantle these social constructs that work at dividing us so much. So when I talk about social constructs, I'm meaning race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, all of these things that divide us, but have no biological bearings on who we are as people whatsoever. And so my mission in 5 to 10 years, when, like you said, David, we're taking this thing over, is to try to bring everyone together and understand that we're more alike than we are different. And if we can dismantle these constructs of race and class and things and try to come to an understanding where we can see that there are more similarities rather than differences, I think then we can start to move forward as one nation rather than clinging to these differences that don't matter really. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking in 5 to 10 years. That's what we really have to tackle, is just making sure that we understand that we're alike and we have similar, our experiences aren't the same, but we have similar plights and similar struggles. And if we could all just like come together to fix those, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Cheyenne, I admire your courage. You're in high school and you're here with us. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Love to hear your thoughts.
I would say the same thing as Autumn. I feel like now, especially like with race, there's a lot of hatred towards one another. And I would guess, and I would say that it's a lot. I would say a lot comes from social media or also like self-taught things, because I feel like when we're born, we're taught to hate or just dislike, because I feel like when you start off young and you're like in school and stuff, you love one another, and until it's taught to you to hate, it's like, yeah. So I feel like race, I would want that to change kind of, because it's just a lot of hatred and it shouldn't be. And like she said, we're more alike than we are different. And you really never know until you like meet someone, but you can't like automatically hate them because of their race, and that doesn't really define them. So
thank you. Mr. King.
Yeah, just to kind of echo both Autumn and Cheyenne, what I would really like to kind of focus on as I kind of grow older is just really investing in humanity, just kind of trying to tear down, as Will said, just hatred that has been built up. One thing I would like to focus on is kind of investing in like education. I do feel like that was a pivotal time for me whenever I kind of discovered, self-worth and, just really started to like dive into like who I was as a person. And I do believe that, education should, strive to be that for other kids. I do think that, seeing yourself being represented only one type of way in like the way that you are kind of taught, whether it's like publicly in a public school, private school, like whatever kind of school you went to. I do believe that, having like representation of the best of a holistic kind of scene of America, like for instance, Black history, instead of it being portrayed in one specific way throughout, our education, it gets portrayed in, kind of a Afrocentric way. And so just kind of making little changes at, that kind of level at the state level, just to kind of, re-energize our young students and re-energize, our youth to kind of strive to be their best selves and the best that they can be for, our country. Another issue that I would like to tackle is race as well. Just kind of breaking down the constructs that keep us divided, just diving into media and trying to dismantle, kind of these loops of showing specific demographics one specific way, and just kind of trying to shed light into certain cultures that don't necessarily get looked into otherwise, and just spinning that positively, to kind of bring us together as a people. And so, like I said, just to echo Autumn and Cheyenne, just investing in humanity, just making sure that everyone, yeah.
Thank you very much. And Donna, what's the top of mind question for you of our panelists?
Okay. So what you just spoke on was an evolution from where we are now and how you'll move forward as you take the reins to move us together forward. And that's great. And it's encouraging to hear each of you speak on those issues and hear that it's dynamic. But what's encouraging to you in how you see Gen Xers and baby boomers operate in society and politics now? What will you carry forward? What have you witnessed in your elders that you think is worthy of carrying forward as you achieve these goals that you're talking about?
Thank you for that question, Donna. And which of our three guests like to handle that question first?
I think starting with Autumn. Let's start with Autumn and then Cheyenne and then Keyshawn. Is it possible that all three people answer
Sure, yeah.
for each of the questions? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Autumn.
So I'll use an example. Recently, there was an Oklahoma woman who was charged with terrorism when she was protesting. And I was just thinking, like, I'm pretty active in the community as well. And I was thinking, what if I got arrested for terrorism and was in jail? And I started thinking about Angela Davis and the fact that she was on trial and she represented herself. And I started thinking, like, how much confidence would you have to have in yourself to represent yourself for a charge that could land you in jail for the rest of your life? And I started thinking back to, like, even if I felt confident enough to represent myself, I would still feel like I'd want a lawyer there to consult with. But then I started thinking, like, she had so much confidence in herself and others before her had so much perseverance. And I was just thinking, like, that's what I want to take with me. I want to take with me a sense of, you know what, I believe in myself so much that I'm going to take on the system by myself because I believe in myself that much. And so when I think about my elders like Sojourner Truth, Maria Stewart, Clara Luper, Nancy Davis, and these women who took on these huge tasks and took on the burdens of desegregating, anti-lynching initiatives, I think about the strength, the perseverance, the resiliency, and the self-confidence that they all had to possess. And so as I kind of navigate through this terrain of social activism and just community engagement, I carry all those things with me. And I carry Angela Davis, I carry Assata Shakur, I carry Toni Morrison with me. And I remember that these women had the strength to move mountains, and I'm no different than they are. So, and I think that that's the message I want to send to other Black women. Like, there are other Black women that came before us, and there can be those that come after them. And that's what I want to do. And that's what I want Cheyenne to do. And that's what I want people after Cheyenne to do. And just know that there exists this power. There exists power.
Thank you. I like your reference to sources of strength. And turning now to Cheyenne, who have been your sources of strength, as Donna asked?
Well, kind of like to piggyback off what Autumn said, it's encouraging to see people like before me, like my elders, they have a lot of confidence. Like she said, it takes a lot, I feel like, even in general, to just speak on something you believe, because like I said earlier, there's so much hate. So I feel like for people to just stand up and speak on something that they believe, like, it takes a lot. And I think that's like male and female. It just takes a lot. And like with our world now, or even saying something that, even if you say something and you believe in it, and you say it in not even like a disrespectful way, or not even a way that offends others, like, so much can happen. You could still be like, there's just so much that can happen just for saying how you feel or believing how you feel. People will hurt you, or it's just a lot. So like she said, having confidence.
And speaking of that, I admired during our rehearsal last week when Autumn spoke to you and said, take your power.
Yeah, I was going to say
that. That was a pretty awesome moment last week. And Keyshawn, I'd love to hear your response to Donna's question.
Definitely, I would say that I kind of draw my sense of strength kind of more through family. My story is a little non-conventional. Like I said, growing up in upstate South Carolina, I wasn't really exposed to much. Liberty, super small town, 3,000 people, as the population size, I believe. And my grandma, she's lived here all her life. She actually grew up with, I think, 7 brothers and sisters as sharecroppers. And so she was actually pulled from school at a super young age at 3rd grade. I apologize. Yeah,
Oh, good. You're back. You'll get back. It's okay. We'll come back to you. David, how about you ask our next question of our panelists? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Absolutely. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. So all of you, if you could just picture, I'm going through time again. 10 years from now, and I'm not that clairvoyant, but I'm going to go out here on the limb. One of you may run for some office. It can be school board. It can be city council. It could be a state, federal level, whatever. If you could whisper one hint to that self 10 years from now, what would be one quality that you would want them to take with them as they run for that office?
And I'm going to ask Cheyenne to answer that first.
I would say, like I said before, confidence. A few weeks ago, it was like just kind of starting school, getting used to like the new way of learning since we're like on Zoom now. And there were class officers. Everybody was running for class officers. And in the beginning, I didn't want to because I kind of felt like no one would vote for me. I don't know why, but I kind of just felt like no one would vote for me. And this girl that I'm really close with, she ran for class president. And she was like, I really want you to be my vice president because, like you're head on, you're very smart, and you have a lot of confidence, which like it meant a lot to me for somebody else to tell me that. Like, I know I have confidence and I believe in myself, but it just meant a lot for someone else my age to say that to me because, I don't know, it just, from somebody my age meant a lot to me. So confidence, because without that and without her telling me that, I wouldn't have ran, and I did run, and I'm now vice president of my class. So confident.
How about that? We have 2 vice presidents on this panel, Keyshawn and Cheyenne. I love it. I love it. Autumn, how about you address David's question? Go ahead.
I would just say honesty and humility. First, honesty, because I think sometimes when people are running for public office, there are a lot of times ulterior motives attached to it. And I would just say if in 10 years, if I were running for office in 10 years, I would just want to remind myself to just remain honest. Like, what are your intentions? What are your motivations? Who are you trying to help? Why are you doing this? And being transparent with those who would be, hopefully voting for me. And also humility. I sometimes also feel, like, sometimes we have like an us versus them hierarchy, but at the same time, like our public officials were voted in to represent their constituents. And so dissolving that us versus them hierarchy and realizing like I'm doing this as a public service to the public constituents who voted me into this office. So remaining honest, remaining humble would be something I would remind myself in 10 years.
Thank you. And I'm going to flip the question just a little bit for Keyshawn. You ran for office. You ran for office for the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity on the Stanford campus. So go ahead and unmute yourself and share with us your pitch to the 75 brothers of Phi Kappa Psi at Stanford University.
I wouldn't say it was a pitch per se. And I apologize if my Wi-Fi falters out again. But just to kind of give you guys some insight, I do feel like I also struggle with confidence, and just being in front of, you know, my brothers that I've grown extremely close to, it kind of just brings this sense of intimacy, trust, and like just being able to express my devotion, you know, to this group, express my intentions for where I would like to take this group and how I would like to see this group grow. I think, you know, just people could see how genuine, you know, my responses were, how genuine, you know, my intentions were, and just me being elected, I think really allowed me to learn to trust myself and trust the decisions that I make, because coming from my background, like I have my hands in a lot of different pots. I feel like I can hear a lot of different perspectives and kind of weave it into, you know, my day to day, and weave it into how I see the world, and weave it into how I can try and change the world, even if it be, you know, one small, you know, California beta chapter. So that's kind of what I would do, you know, if I had to run in 10 years.
Thank you. Thank you. And Donna, how about you pose the next question to our guests?
Certainly. So when we had the chance to talk, when we were getting to know each other last week, we talked some about cancel culture. And I know that's sort of a catchphrase, and it can't be a catch-all for all the nuances of it, but I would like for each of our folks here to express what their thoughts are about cancel culture and what's happening within cancel culture. Is it helpful? Has it been helpful? Has it sort of reached a time? What steps can we take to move toward it or move away from it? Yeah, I think that's it, to just have your thoughts about cancel culture. And I think we should start with Keyshawn this time.
Yeah, so kind of just diving back into kind of our discussion last week, I do believe that cancel culture has been kind of a root, well, been a part of the root of the problem of the division within our country. I feel like how we can kind of address it is through, as I said earlier, education and kind of self-empowering both our students, our youth, and as well as, you know, our adults even. I feel that the reason why cancel culture has such a hold on our society is because we've kind of learned how to just, I don't know, conform, kind of just put our kind of beliefs in the back burner as it compares to, you know, like the whole. And so I feel like if, you know, we kind of have more self-empowerment and more agency within ourselves to believe in ourselves and believe in our beliefs and kind of stick to that, then cancel culture wouldn't have such a hold on, you know, us as a generation and as a society. So I feel like that could, you know, have some type of positive result in how we can kind of minimize cancel culture and how it affects all of us.
Thank you. And with Cheyenne or Autumn, who would like to go next? Raise your hand. Go ahead.
So cancel culture. I think cancel culture inhibits one's ability to grow. And we're currently living in a nation where we want people to understand and grow in their understandings of other people's experiences. I won't lie, I have participated in cancel culture. I can't tell you the last time I've shopped at H&M. And so I think we're all guilty of participating in cancel culture, but I think that especially as we're moving toward trying to depolarize this nation, I think that we have to be honest about what cancel culture does. And what cancel culture does, I feel like it isolates us from people that we're supposed to be reaching. If we cancel everybody who has different views than us, then we're only going to surround ourselves with people who are like our yes men. And what good does that do for depolarizing the current climate of this nation? So I think that we have to move away from cancel culture and realize that it basically is stunting the growth of America as we're trying to move towards this understanding depolarized culture.
Thank you so much. And Cheyenne, please.
Same thing said. I don't remember the last time I shopped at H&M either. But I would say to minimize it, kind of, we should like learn to accept, because we live in a diverse world and everything and everyone is different. So we just have to accept. others' opinions and beliefs.
Thank you. And we got quite personal last week at our rehearsal. And this question is directed toward Autumn. And you can pass because it is personal to you. You shared a story regarding your PhD process.
Yes.
And the audience might be curious to hear.
Yeah.
Please share with us.
So, the story, I'm currently writing a dissertation. I'm writing it through a Black feminist lens. And shortly after proposing my dissertation, I learned about a blog from a member on my dissertation committee. And on his blog, it was very anti-Black Lives Matter. It considered Black feminism as radical and seemingly useless as a theoretical lens. And I learned kind of just about his ideas, and I was taken aback because I'd worked with this guy for years, and I kind of learned that everything that I'm for, he's against. And the first reaction from everyone I spoke to was, get him off your committee. You don't need someone like that on your committee, get him off. And in my head, I was just like, that's too easy, right? I could kick him off and say, well, you're anti-Black Lives Matter, so you're off my committee. But then I thought, what good would that do? If I kick him off, that's probably what he would want to happen, because he probably wouldn't want to listen to my Black feminist study. But then I also thought of it as an opportunity. Like, what if Cheyenne wants to go to Oklahoma State University one day and do a study through a Black feminist lens, and she runs across this professor who sees Black feminism as radical? I feel like it's my responsibility to try to show him why Black feminism is is an important lens. It's imperative, it's necessary, but also help him understand that as a Black woman and as future Black scholars enter this program, they have to have some type of an outlet to do research in a way that incorporates their Blackness. And rather than kicking him off and saying, well, we disagree, I saw it as an opportunity to try to get him to see the importance of Black feminism, so that rather than just shunning it and brushing it off, he won't turn against it for other Black women who might come across his class or come through his research class. So everyone is kind of looking at me crazy because I refuse to kick him off my committee, but I felt like this was just an opportunity to teach and to have him understand and to see it from a different lens than just one that's being fed to him through the media. And so it's important for me to, again, like I said, I take part in cancel culture, but I'm taking a stand and I'm not going to cancel him. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with that right now.
And I want to add, from a Braver Angels perspective, that it requires courage to be courageous and speak up points of view. At the same time, listen to others. So, Donna, would you like to ask your third question, please, of our panelists?
Sure. So I'm thinking about what each of you said about family and about just persons that we know who are part of speaking truth to power in the history of our country, Angela Davis, and you mentioned others, Autumn. So I'm thinking about them as models for action. Who are models for civility for you now and in this current culture? Like, who are the people who are very present today and speaking into the issue of us coming together? Yeah, who's talking to you about that, and who are you talking with? And let's start with Cheyenne.
Does it have to be like someone like known, or could it be like a family member?
Family member, please.
It can be anyone you want it to be. Yeah, whoever's speaking to you and modeling civility for you, this kind of thing that we're all coming together to talk about here today. Ultimately.
So I would say my great grandmother and my mom. So my great grandmother, she's like, I don't even know how to explain it. She is like really, really into politics and stuff. But even though she is on the with the blue side, she still like teaches me. My mom also teaches me to understand. And kind of like I said earlier, just understand others. And like Autumn said, don't be so quick to cancel them out, but just listen to their reason for why they believe in what they believe. So, yeah. And even in like just regular life situations, my mom always says, just get an understanding. And don't be so quick to cancel others out. Just understand why.
Nice, very nice. We'll have Keyshawn unmute himself and reply to Donna's question, and then Autumn.
Yeah, so similarly to Cheyenne, my individual is also my mom. We have multiple conversations, multiple times a day about, you know, how to kind of integrate civility into like political discourse, specifically, you know, like within Facebook as a medium, you know, with COVID happening and like social distancing, we kind of don't really, you know, travel outside of the house much. And now with Facebook kind of being like the main source of, well, not source of contact with people, but kind of where you can, you know, interact with people and kind of see like their innermost thoughts with the election. There has been plenty of polarizing, you know, Facebook posts, especially with us being blue in a highly red demographic, being in South Carolina. You know, it is to be expected that we run into people that don't really agree with us and don't really, you know, see eye to eye with us on certain issues. And so, you know, our conversations surrounding individuals who have been like friends with us for years, but then like we disagree on like key like fundamental issues. You know, like where do we go? Like, how do we like continue this relationship with this friend? And so, you know, just having multiple conversations with her, seeing through her eyes about how, you know, there are so many, you know, kind of, you know, intersections within, you know, relationships, like, and how they can affect, you know, yourself and them. And so, like you said, Autumn, you know, like just seeing it as an opportunity, you know, just changing your perspective and perhaps like, you know, just trying to share your point of view from a side that they could somehow understand or maybe come close to attempting to understand. So, you know, just she has definitely been a huge model for civility, like within my life. And I'm very, very thankful for her.
Go moms. Autumn, love to hear from you.
So I'm just going to piggyback off the last two, Cheyenne and Keyshawn, and say definitely my mom, my dad, and my grandmother. Actually wear this necklace into everything that I do because it's my grandmother's name, and her name is Winona. And to me, it's like I'm taking her with me when I do these things. But I can just remember being really young and her like kind of fostering my craziness and just like, you know, letting me be me in my space. And so when I think about everything that I'm doing now and the work that I'm doing, I think about her and doing it for her, because she definitely grew up, my grandmother I'm talking about, grew up in a time where, you know, one generation removed from slavery, very hard, sharecropping type of life. And I just think about doing it for her. I also, both of my parents have been my biggest advocates. I do a lot of work on Black feminist activism, and I would say my mom is just as much of an activist as any well-known activist, just because of how she made my day-to-day life bearable growing up in an all-white environment. And same thing with my dad. And so when I think about who drives my civility, I definitely would say it's my grandmother and my mom and my dad, because they've played a huge part in my life and who I've become. And when I think about this work, I think about the young children that they once were and the types of lives that I know that, and the type of life and the type of environment I know that they would want to have grown up in. And so I think about just giving back in that way.
Thank you for that. And the following is not scripted. We did not rehearse what's going to happen next. each of you now is a moderator, and you get to ask a question of Donna and or myself. So Donna and I are gonna let go. We have not rehearsed this. So which of you would like to ask any one of us a question? Just go ahead and ask it.
I would say for Donna or Carlos, whoever wants to kind of just jump in and answer, just to kind of, you know, see where you guys lie within kind of your relation to the way that baby boomers and Generation X or millennials kind of interact. How would you say that the discourse is going, and like what would be some things that you would try and like pass down generationally?
And we'll have, I'll let Donna answer that first.
Okay. I'm tremendously encouraged. I'm discouraged by the fact that we don't have, this may be controversial, but I think we need age limits on the people who are in our government participating in leadership, because I firmly believe that the people who are a part of the generation that we're active in, and also the one following, immediate following, should be more a part of the conversation and leadership. So I would say that is very encouraging to me. The fact that we have an energy that seems to be the follow through from the 60s culture, where we were an active voice, especially as African Americans, when I think of my experience as an African American woman. It seemed like somehow we missed a few steps, 70s, 80s, okay, disco, whatever. And then bam, here we are, right where we should have been, as far as I'm concerned. So I know we needed those years. I know things transpired. There is no wasted time. I have, you know, that is like a spiritual guidepost, that there is nothing wasted. But I'm really pleased to see the generation that's coming up now, and how actively and loudly and forcefully and with understanding that they speak to the issues that have been here.
I'll tackle that, and I will likely reflect my prejudice as a 63-year-old gentleman. I will tolerate opinions provided the individual who conveys them conveys examples. Autumn's story rung with me because it was personal. Opinions minus experience for me, thumbs down. I also respect the individual who reads. Go ahead and read the New York Times. Also read the Wall Street Journal. Get balance. You don't like Fox News? Tough. Watch it. And then talk to me about what is said on MSNBC. And what I have issue with as a Hernandez, Carlos Rafael, is when I'm relabeled by the younger generation. All of a sudden, I'm Latinx. No, I'm not. I'm not Latinx. I'm Latino. Ask me. Don't assume. Do not speak for me. We are not coherent and congruent as communities of color. We have our fractions. It was just revealed in the Florida vote, for example. The Cubans went one way. Don't assume the Mexicans will vote the same way. And that's why I love about Braver Angels. We need to invite the minority voices of the minorities. There's minority voices of the minorities. And so that's my answer to your question. And Cheyenne or Autumn, go ahead and ask, would you like to ask of Donna and myself?
Yeah, I have a question. I think especially in relation to the current presidential election that's still ongoing, we saw a lot of celebrities kind of coming out and speaking on behalf of like the Black community, or just coming out in support of certain candidates or things like that. So I guess my question is, what do you see What are your guys' thoughts on the role and the influence that celebrities are beginning to have on like political situations or even criminal justice reforms or things like that? Like, what do you guys think about the celebrity presence, and especially the celebrity presence as it relates to speaking on behalf of a community of people?
I would say that I too, like Carlos, are more concerned about what action people are taking and less about what they're saying. And I understand that some people use their influencer voice because they have a following or they can speak in an instant to a situation, and that has some value. It has less value for me. So if someone has taken an action towards their conviction, their personal conviction, and I can see it and I can measure it and I can see how it plays out over time, that has value to me. And it doesn't matter if they're celebrated or if they're, Joe Blow. I want to see what you do. I want to see what the outcome is from it. And I want, maybe if it's not you speaking to it, if you've got somebody else, I want the people on the ground in that issue and in that action to talk to me. Yeah. And I agree with Carlos. You really can't read enough, and I would prefer people who have a strong base of disparate opinion and also a read base to talk to me about any subject. But, I'm not going to discount the voice of the proletariat or people who are just, like we all are. We have a sameness and we have passion, and that's valuable to me too. But if you're talking about making progress on these issues that affect us all, I kind of want you to have an understanding from being read about the subject.
Thank you, Autumn. One day you'll be interviewed by your PhD panel and they're going to put you in a hot spot. I like this question, and I'll get very specific. LeBron James, the value of what he says is worth 1. The value of what you say is worth 1. The value of Keyshawn say is worth 1. The value of Cheyenne, I'm going to say double because she's under the age of 18. So that's my thought of celebrities. They have the advantage. What advantage? They make a lot of money. And there's a circle around them, a posse. And the media wants to get their quotes. So the writer can look good in the newspaper or the interviewer on MSNBC. Is that voice, his voice, more powerful than yours? Really? Did your grandmother raise you to think that your voice is less than LeBron's? I don't even know your grandmother. I'm going to say, who? What? What's he do? I know what my girl does. My Autumn. And Cheyenne's mom and Keyshawn's mom. I will say this, though, and this is all in jest. When I called Keyshawn to volunteer for this, I drew on his last name. I want to speak to Mr. King. He carries a big title there. Last name King. And he quickly caught on that. Martin Luther's voice. Now there is a voice that multiplies. Martin Luther. And Martin Luther's voice was big when he scored 0 points or 50. You think LeBron's voice would be powerful if he scored 0 points? That's how I think. I like that question. Thank you very much. Hope I passed. And this will be the last question if Sean wants to ask one of us before we sign off.
My question would be, since it's 2020 and times are different, a lot different, and because everyone well, unfortunately, everyone is not treated the same. What advice would you give younger people of color who want to speak about politics to like big crowds or things like that? What advice would you give them?
Donna?
Well, I'd say to get a real good understanding of what you're going to speak about in the time that you have before you know you're going to speak. The more you are able to kind of drill down and understand all points of what you're arguing or what you're talking about, the better and the easier it's going to be for you as you are able to speak. And know your intention. Know your goals when you're talking to crowds. And that's a specific goal. Like, in this speech, what do I need to accomplish? Not necessarily, well, I guess you should have this too. What do I want to accomplish in my, career or in my life? You should have that. But specific to each time you get in front of people to talk, I would say, no, what is your immediate goal for that conversation to these people?
And Cheyenne, again, I'll betray my age at 63. The power of public speaking minus slide decks. The power of public speaking minus Zoom. Your competition is your age bracket. Outshine them. Some of their social skills are so limited, they can only talk to a screen, even before COVID. The people that Autumn mentioned, they didn't have technology. They had presence. They had passion. They had energy. They attracted crowds, whether it be in the church, as Dr. King did, Jesse Jackson when he did his thing. Then you'll really stand out. You will really stand out. You will not be me too. You'll be extraordinary. Extraordinary. And again, betraying my age. I love the professors I had at Stanford University who could hold the attention of a classroom. That takes a lot to hold the attention of a classroom, keep you engaged. That's my answer to your question. And we're going to end with that. Yeah, I'm looking at the clock here. Thank you to all of you for joining us on this Braver Angels broadcast. And I'm going to be selfish. I want people to answer your question again. Become Braver Angels. braverangels.org. It costs $1 a month, $12 a year. And so Cheyenne and Autumn and Keyshawn, bring us people. Do your power of your voice. Okay, may include social media. So, Donna, do you have any last minute comments before we sign off?
Now, just to say thank you to each of you. I'm really encouraged to know that you are out there in the world making a difference and speaking your truth and your voice.
Great. So from San Francisco and Southern California and South Carolina, Autumn, I think you're in Oklahoma right now. And Cheyenne, you're in the state of Michigan. We are the United States of America. Good day and good night from Braver Angels. Thank you very much.